Reed, we've got a lot of questions and a lot of wonderful people who would like to hear what you have to say. So would you please take the floor?
Absolutely. And Chris, thank you and Schoolcraft for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I was on the call on the Civility Project, and you have wonderful speakers. So I must say I speak a lot, but after the programs I've seen that you put out, a little anxious to get this going and make sure that I at least get to half of the bar that you're expecting me to. So that is good. I'm going to share my screen because I've got a presentation that I will go through. Let me get that up and running. There we are. Hopefully everybody can see that, and we'll kind of walk through this kind of step by step as we go through it. I always start in some conversations with a lot of people, especially when we're talking about your financial life. And one thing that we need to remember to do is, and understand, is we can only control certain things. Everything else is really out of our control, and it's easy to worry about it because it's our nature. Unfortunately, it doesn't do us a lot of good. And I think the last talk that you guys had with the Civility Project was kind of key to this conversation. On a day-to-day basis, I tell clients, I don't know where the markets are going to go. I have my ideas, but I can't control it. I can't control what the president's going to say. I can't control what the Fed is going to do. But what I can control is myself. I can control what I spend and how I act and react to my environment. So hopefully some of these things will be useful as we go through that. But always remember that control only what you can control. The rest of it, well, I don't want to say don't worry about, but it's really out of our concern. The other thing as we kind of go through this, and in the bio you saw I do a lot of working out. I'm a big CrossFit fan, and one of my mentors and real big competitors is Matt Frazier, and we've heard this before, but he talks about it a lot. Hard work pays off, and I've been doing this a long time. All the things that I've seen and the stories that I've had with clients is that continuing to commit to a program, looking at your goals and achieving them is a wonderful thing. It is not easy. Our conversation is a lot easier than actually doing the work year after year after year. But let me tell you, I have a lot of clients that have had really successful retirements. They're enjoying life, and it's because of the hard work they have put in. So always remember that hard work does pay off, and it will come back to you in spades if you do the actual work. And the other thing that I say, I do a lot of talks, and people that see me on the street, they know one of my taglines, and they say it to me all the time when they see me, is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, which means that you've got to have a plan in place. Financial success doesn't come overnight to very many of us. If you play the lottery, maybe you get lucky. Maybe you make a product and you sell it for a lot of money, but that is not the majority of individuals. So we've got to make sure that we plan, and if we do, we'll know that we'll have success. So I'm going to jump into the presentation, and as you'll see, when is the best time to plan? There's no time like the present to get there. We need to make sure that we're doing our part as soon as we can. And as you'll see, hopefully this will hit, we've got a lot of different ages on the call, and hopefully you're going to kind of find something that is a takeaway for whatever age group or whatever stage of life we are in. So that's a good thing. So we've got 12 resolutions. Number one, and this, I talk to clients a lot about this. We need to get our balance sheet in order. That is very, very key. So it understands kind of where our money is going. I can't tell you the number of clients that I talk to. I'll segment out my doctors. So if there's any doctors on the call, I apologize. But my doctors are usually one of the worst in that they make a lot of money, but they have no idea where it goes. They're like, Reed, you know, I made $250,000, but I didn't save anything. What happened? You know, and I said, well, unfortunately, there's not a little replica of me. There's not a mini me on your shoulder, right, to go around and track everything that you do. And that's where getting our balance sheet in order is going to help. And that is really the first step and the first key to truly understanding our financial situation. So what do I mean by that, and how do we do that? One, it should be kind of at least an annual update or an annual project. As I said, I've been doing this a long time, and when I first started, I would track a monthly budget every single month to kind of find out exactly where I was at. I tell clients that I don't do that anymore. The reason is it's kind of in my head all the time. I can tell you pretty much down to the penny what's in every single one of my accounts. I kind of call me like Rain Man like that. And I don't expect clients to do exactly that, but it's a good idea to have a pretty close ballpark of things that you are doing. So when we look at an annual balance sheet, what do I mean by that? We need to look at our assets versus our liabilities. That's very important to have a structure of where things are at. How much do I have versus how much do I owe? Okay. After we get that, we need to look at our income. And we're going to do that from looking at our anticipated income on what's happening. And then we're going to need to look at our expenses. And at the end of the day, it's important to, one, and I tell clients this is kind of finance 101, our income should always be more than our expenses. Okay. So we need to keep track of that to make sure that that's always in case. If for some reason our expenses are becoming more than our income, right, we need to really look at that. We need to figure out where are we falling down, what improvements can we make, where can we analyze to get those back into a good ratio for it. So then we'll kind of move on, and this will kind of dovetail right into resolution number 1, but this is to review our budget and our spending habits. Okay, and I talked about our income and our expenses because, again, that's very important. And this is where we start to dive deeper into your personal spend and what happens more on a daily basis. Okay, and again, I advocate clients to do this. My clients that are nearing retirement, we do a lot of a program and financial planning software for them. And this is, along with kind of our income statements, this is a key component so that we understand when they go into retirement, where our spend is going to happen. So income expenses, as I said before, those need to really match up, right? If for some reason we've got expenses that are exceeding our income, where is that extra money going to come from? Okay. Most of my clients are not independently wealthy. They've had to work for their wealth. And they understand this difference to say, okay, especially when I stop and go into retirement, right? I'm not going to have that income. So if for some reason my expenses are higher, I've got a problem. I've got to take out of retirement accounts or other areas. So how do we do that? And how do we look at that every year? This is something that we really should look at an annual basis at least. And we say, okay, how did we do? Kind of give ourselves a scorecard. Okay. We're all used to going through school, and we kind of have the A's through a number of different letters down the list. What was our score that year? Okay, what was our grade? How well did we do at staying on track to our budget? Okay, because that is key. If we find out that we didn't do a very good job, we've got to start to analyze it and see, okay, what can we do to make sure that we're back on track? Okay, so we find out, where did we go off track? What happened? What was there a major expense that we didn't plan for? Did the big bad wolf come and blow the roof off? You know, did the water heater go and we didn't have enough money saved? Or did we just spend it on things that we didn't need to spend it on? I tell clients all the time that it's I call it the Starbucks factor or the latte a day factor. I'm a huge coffee drinker. I prefer really good coffee, by the way. And people have a tendency to go to Starbucks and they don't realize that, okay, I understand it might be $5 or $6 a day. That's not a ton of money overall. But when we start to add that up and we say, let's do that every morning, well, that's $25, a week. Do that every per month, so you're timesing that by 4, it's $100 a month just on Starbucks. Well, then you do that per year, you're talking $1,200 in 1 year just on Starbucks coffee. And that's just one coffee a day, right? Do that times 10 years, you're talking $12,000. It adds up, and that's one small thing. So we need to look at that to say, if we aren't on track, what happened? And the next thing we do is, did we have a life change that has affected our expenses? I work a lot with clients that if we're buying and selling homes, okay, if we're moving to a larger home, right, we're going to have higher expenses because the utilities are going to be higher. Everything that goes with a larger home is going to increase our expenses. So we need to look at that. And if we just fall off track and we say, okay, our expenses really are becoming a lot more than our income, what can we do and where can we trim some of those expenses? I bring up coffee, and I said I like really good coffee, but I will do it fresh every morning. I grind it fresh every morning, and I save a ton of money by doing that. So I get the great quality of coffee that I like at a fraction of the cost it is from going to a place to get it every day. So that's just kind of one idea where personally I tell clients all the time that we can trim kind of expenses. Nowadays, people have kind of cut the cord, as they say. So if you're looking at cable TV and if you have a home phone, items like that, really great ways where you're not going to affect your lifestyle. You're just going to save a lot of money every single month by doing that. So we get the resolution and kind of number 3, and this is review the titling of accounts. And Chris, I know you'll appreciate this. I chuckle at this all the time. I tell clients that the hard part of what we really do is analyzing markets, investments, reviewing and titling of account should be a pretty standard thing that advisors do. The unfortunate thing is I see it wrong all the time. So I always tell clients that as we're going through reviews, we need to make sure that our accounts are titled correctly. And it's important to really look at those, maybe not on a yearly basis, but as major events happen, make sure we've got them correctly titled because it can make a big difference. So what do I mean by that? Accounts really are based off of our current situation. And again, as life goes on, what happens? Things change. And as things change, we need to make sure that we keep our accounts titled appropriately, okay? So what, look at this, a lot of times I get with my seniors, they tell me, Reed, I want to add my children onto the account, right? Because I want them to have access if something happens to me. And I tell them the thought process is wonderful, Unfortunately, it's not the best idea, okay, to put kids on your account. The reason for that is if for some reason they get into a lawsuit, okay, if it is a joint account now, that is an asset that can be fought over in the lawsuit. And technically, it's not their money. It's the parents' money. So there's other ways and avenues that we have in order to title accounts appropriately so that we maintain access to those accounts. Okay. Correct titling can also help a lot with estate planning, depending on what we have going on in our estate, how we have our estate set up, if we've gone through trust planning or not. Again, titling the accounts correctly are going to make a huge difference if something were to happen to us, and allow clients to maintain the control or their family maintain control without adverse things happening. The next thing that we look at too is kind of designating and updating beneficiaries. And I'll tell you, this is huge. I see this a lot. I do a lot of reviews of company retirement plans. So clients have assets in their 401ks and their 403bs. And I see it quite frequently that we'll look to do a beneficiary check. Okay. Now let me just kind of back up a minute and explain what a beneficiary is. A beneficiary is a way that we pass assets on in the event of your death. So if you were to pass away, the beneficiary or beneficiaries are going to inherit your assets. So we want to make sure that they are inheriting, who you want to inherit them is inheriting them correctly. So we need to make sure that we update our beneficiaries and keep them really current, okay? So I always ask clients, when is the last time we looked at our beneficiaries? Do we know who our beneficiaries are on all of our accounts? Have we gone over our 401ks, our 403bs? Have we looked at our life insurance? Okay, these are big, big factors that come into play. I have not had it happen in the office. I know a lot of colleagues in this business, and this is an unfortunate case that happens where maybe we have a divorce, right? And we have an old account and we get remarried, and unfortunately we don't update our beneficiary, we pass away, and the ex-spouse is named as the beneficiary. Kind of a problem, I've got a case that came in the other day that we're working through with the clients that unfortunately the father passed away, had just gone through a divorce with the mother, and he updated the beneficiary to the children. Okay, well, because of timeframes, it's going to be a legal battle. He at least did the right thing, and the beneficiary should hold up, but we want to make sure that your money goes to who you want it to go to in the event that something happens to you early. So what are some of the unrelated, things that happen? Obviously, updating for life events, as I mentioned, and also we want to avoid probate so that we don't have to go to the courts and say, here is what my mom or dad wanted to happen. They left the beneficiary off, and we are the kids, so it's rightfully ours. Just a lot of extra paperwork and time that we've got to go through that could have been saved if we would have made sure that we had our beneficiaries updated. Obviously, and Chris said it really well at the beginning of this year and the past 14 months have been really different from a normal state of an environment. We're going through a global pandemic, and things are happening, a lot of things that are out of our control. As I mentioned at the beginning, that we probably know at least one person that has passed away of COVID, unfortunately, probably many more. And in these events where life is coming at us very quickly, we want to make sure that these things are up to date for us. We'll get to kind of resolution number 5, and this is evaluating your cash holdings. And we'll go through some slides. And again, it is very important that as we kind of get to this resolution, we've gone through looking at our assets and our liabilities. We really looked at our balance sheets. We've looked at our budgeting. And now it's okay. How much cash do we really need to have for immediate access? How do we use it? And what's the appropriate time for it? Okay. Everyone needs some cash reserves. Okay. This is money in the bank that, again, let's say the water heater goes, or we have something happen with our vehicle. We need to have this cash so that we are making sure our long-term retirement goals are not adversely affected by a short-term problem. We have a saying in this office that use short-term solutions for short-term problems. Don't use long-term solutions for short-term problems, okay? So what does that look like? I always advocate to have around 6 months of living expenses that are easily accessible, okay? What does that mean? Quick and easy access to accounts. Does it mean that you need to have it directly in the bank? Maybe not. Maybe we have it in a brokerage account. It's a non-retirement account that you can get money to. We invest those dollars so that we're getting a little bit better appreciation in the bank, but they're quick access. And maybe it's we keep 6 months of liquid cash in the bank. Everybody's kind of comfort level is a little bit different. The main thing to understand is that we need to have this in the event that life is going to happen to us, because it always does. Clients call all the time with things that just all of a sudden popped up, or they need money for their children, something came up, or grandchildren. Great, it's easy if we have that money on hand to do that. I always remind clients, because especially today, I see it more than any other time in my career, clients are holding on to large sums of cash in the bank. Always realize that, a bank account is only FDIC'd up to $250,000. Everything over that, we don't have insurance on it. So resolution number 6, and this is where we'll kind of get into some of the bulk of the conversation and talk of it. We always want to look and revisit our portfolio's asset allocation. This is something that I can't stress enough to clients, because the environment's always going to change for us. And if we don't have our asset allocation in an appropriate mix, we could lead ourselves to potential harm. So I tell clients that one of my main things that I look at with all clients is risk, okay? And risk is unfortunately a one-way street. What do I mean by that? When we're looking at a client's portfolio, if I keep your risk in check, I know that we'll eventually get the returns that we need. And that's, again, a one-way street. I cannot reverse that. I can't say I'm going to shoot for your returns and be confident that I keep your risk in check, right? If I shoot for your returns, I could have your risk profile way out of whack. And then an event like last year happens, and boy, we have a 40% sell-off in the market, and our portfolio is affected in a very adverse way for that. So how do we do that? And these are things where all the time when markets are very, very good, okay, I see clients' risks get out of control, meaning, Reed, the stock market's going great, full on risk, I can take all of it, and again, then something out of the blue happens that we're not expecting, and bang, we take a huge sell-off. So we've always got to make sure that we're comfortable with the level of risk in our portfolio. And stating a comfort and going through a market event are really two different things. Because I have clients that, okay, Rita, a 30% drawdown on the portfolio, I can take that, right? Let me put some actual dollars to it, because this is where clients are like, okay, when they see it on their statements, it gets a little bit kind of that pit in your stomach kind of starts to creep up a little bit. Let's say you got $1 million portfolio and you told me you could take a 30% down, strike on your portfolio. That means your portfolio goes from $1 million to $700,000. How does that feel? Is that really comfortable? I will tell you that most clients' risk portfolios are a lot lower than they state, meaning that if you tell me you can take a 30% drawdown, probably more like a 20% is going to be your threshold. So I always tell clients that we need to evaluate what that really is, and we need to put dollars to it, to say what dollars are we relating to in the event we have a unnecessary downturn in the market. The other thing that I tell clients that risk tolerance isn't static. It's not something that we set and we forget it. Again, like reviewing our budget, we need to review our risk tolerance all the time. And it's going to change. Someone that's a lot younger should probably have a higher risk tolerance than someone that's nearing retirement, okay? When we go into retirement, it doesn't mean that we go to 100% conservative risk tolerance, because ideally, if you retire at, let's say, 62 or 65, you might have 20, 25, 30 years in retirement. We still have some longevity because we're going to live a while, but our risk tolerance does change a little bit on that. So again, something to kind of put as a reminder all the time when we're kind of going for and striving for good financial success for our future, always really look at risk, because that is a key driver of portfolio returns. And I tell clients all the time, because I see it, I know that markets are getting a little bit frothy. When we used to be able to travel, I would go to New York to see portfolio managers, and I knew I needed to start to ratchet risk tolerances down when the cab driver would start to give me, stock suggestions. They would come in, oh, what do you do? Oh, great, here's the hot stock for today. I always laugh and I say, okay, we probably need to check our risk tolerance at that point, because markets are getting a little bit high when my local taxi driver thinks he knows the markets a little better than we do. And that's good. All right, so the next thing we look at is evaluating our sources of income in retirement. Okay, now for our younger individuals, obviously retirement is way down the road and something that we think, is it ever going to get there? The answer is yes, it is going to get there. And we always need to evaluate where our income is going to come at, okay? Right now, I'm going to show some slides and we'll see a number of different places that our income comes from, and we'll talk about those. For our younger people on the call, unfortunately, it's my personal belief that your retirement income is mainly going to be what you're saving through savings, 401ks, Roth IRAs, items like that, okay? Because a lot of the things that our retirees have today are just not going to be around when you go to retire in the next 20, 30, 40 years. So when we look at that, we say, let's identify our income sources. So you'll see things kind of pop up. Social Security, pensions, inheritance, rental properties. So pensions are pretty much a thing of the past, okay? These are plans that companies used to put together for their retirees so that when they would go to retire, they had a stream of income like they were still working. They're very expensive for corporations, and that's why we don't really see them anymore, okay? Inheritance. Maybe we're going to have an inheritance. Maybe we've got a family that has done very well, or we come from a well-off family and we'll have some inheritance. That's something to put into the mix of things. As I said, the bulk of income for most individuals is going to come from your very own retirement accounts, which means you've got to start to plan today. You've got to put money away so that these retirement accounts can start to build over time. I'll take a little time on Social Security because I get a lot of questions on Social Security, especially from my young clients who are like, Reed, is Social Security going to be around? It's going bankrupt, and why am I putting into it? Because it's not going to be there. My personal belief from talking to a lot of people that know Social Security, the ins and outs, and the financial situation of Social Security a lot better than I do, is that one, it's going to be there. It's probably going to look a little bit different for people that are just entering the workforce versus people that are drawing Social Security right now. I can't imagine Social Security going away in the near to distant future. I usually never use the words never, so I'm not going to say it's never going to go away. It might, by the time I'm passed away, might look at something very different. But I do believe it is something that we will have some type of income from Social Security. What I tell clients is that it is not going to be able to pay for your retirement lifestyle, okay? Social Security, when some of these young people go to take it, is going to be supplemental income, okay? We're still going to need to draw from other type of retirement accounts in order to do that. When we draw Social Security, there are a number of different strategies that we use. We've had a lot of the quote loopholes taken away over the most recent years, but there are still a lot of strategies that we are using and employing for married couples on Social Security. Every client has a different idea of what they want to do with Social Security. So I tell clients all the time, there is no one right choice. You know, do you take it early? Do you wait till you're 70 and get all the delayed credits? There's a lot of different answers to that. And it's a very situational recommendation on how we handle it. Is there an age difference between you and your spouse, your partner, that maybe we want to try to maximize Social Security over a lifetime? Do we have widow benefits? A lot of different things that are happening. It's important to know that though, and what they are. So we'll get, again, how reliable is that source? So I talked about let me go back one slide, talk about Social Security. Again, I think it's going to be there. Pensions, again, because the economy is doing fairly well now, most pensions are getting back on track, but it's a question that we need to ask because some of the people from the automotive business, and depending on if you were a supplier, there are some pension plans that are still being evaluated because they were underfunded. They're in the government court system, and clients that were expecting some of this money aren't getting it yet. So again, that's another question that we need to look at. So I talked about Social Security. One thing that I advocate clients to do all the time is review your Social Security statement. Very, very important. How do we do that when we're looking at it, and why do we do that? Because it's really going to affect what your Social Security amount is going to be. So I tell clients all the time, go on and please establish, go to ssa.gov, and you can establish an online account so that you can review your Social Security all the time, okay? What are we reviewing it for? We're reviewing it for your history of earnings, okay? We want to make sure that we're establishing a long trend of employment income in Social Security. Why is that? How do we achieve Social Security, or what is it based off of? I get that question asked a lot of time. So in order to receive Social Security, you need to be employed for a minimum of 10 years. So please do not go to work for 9 years, 11 months, and 27 days. You know, you won't get Social Security. Do the extra couple days so that you qualify for your 10 years, okay? Then it's going to be adjusted and accounted for your highest 40 years of income, okay? And they do a lot of computations to do that, to figure out exactly, you know, your wage. If you were working in 1980, you made a lot less, but we have to account for inflation and wage growth on that. So it's important that we've got an accurate history of what that is, okay? I encourage clients to do this all the time. We've got software that does it for them, but we want to compute our benefits at different ages, okay? To say, what is our benefit at 62? What's our benefit at, say, full retirement age, which might be 66 and 4 months or 67? What's our benefit age 70, okay? So that we can understand what is the best way to deal and handle Social Security. And then, as I said, we really need to understand the rules around spousal benefits. A lot of things have changed with spousal benefits. It is still, though, a tool that we can drastically emphasize and gain more income over a lifetime. I was on a call with a client last night, and there's an age difference between the husband and the wife. The age difference is about 6 years. Males typically don't live as long as females. Females have a longer life expectancy. So when we're using spousal benefits, there is a good reason to look and say, let's try to get the husband, male, take benefit at age 70 because the premise is that he is going to pass away before his wife. Two reasons. One, he's a lot older. Two, he's a male. And that the wife will then inherit his Social Security at age 70 for the rest of her life at a drastically higher amount. So a lot of different things that go on Social Security that we can be used. I gave a talk a while back to a room full of advisors, and I used the term, Social Security is your $1 million asset. And after my call and talk was done, they said, Reed, what are you talking about? Like, I've never heard anybody tell it like that. Can you explain the numbers? I said, well, if you really look at what we're getting from Social Security, if you are married, okay, you will approximately receive around $1 million if you are an average person through your lifetime. So making sure we make the right decision with that money is extremely important. So now we'll give something that this is kind of in Chris's wheelhouse. We want to review our tax efficiency of charitable giving. And a lot of things have changed in our world starting 2020 as far as required minimum distributions and how we give to charity and what's taxable, what's not taxable. And we can really use these strategies to save a lot of dollars on taxation. I tell people all the time that I do not mind paying my fair share of taxes. I'm more than happy to, because I don't want to go out and I'm not going to repair the roads myself, and that's why we pay these taxes. I have a problem when I think I'm paying more than my fair share. And really, when it comes to charitable giving, I would rather the charities of my choice get the benefits rather than paying extra in taxes. Okay. So, one, how do we do it? Again, it's great to be generous. I will tell you that the best time that I see clients go through with some of the biggest smiles is when we reach their goals, we're into retirement, and they can start to give to their charities, they can give to their kids, they can really help things make the world a better place for them. Maybe we're looking at, they want to endow a certain project at their local charity or their church. It really becomes the fun time of saying, we've done a really, really great job. Now is the time to give our money away. Let's make sure we do it appropriately, okay? So how do we do some of these things? One, if we're looking at non-IRA accounts, we can donate low basis stock, rather than cash, so that we don't have to incur the capital gains on that, okay? Maybe you're going to consider a donor advised fund so that we can put it in there, and that donor advised fund can give money away every year, and we get some tax deductions on it. Charitable giving from IRA, so qualified distributions from that go right to charities, count as your required minimum distribution, but do not count as taxable income. So again, a lot of things that we can do from a charitable basis that are going to help us achieve our goals and lower our tax implication at the same time. So a lot of really, really good things and a lot of really good strategies that are there for it. Last year, because of the CARES Act, there was no required minimum distribution. That is off the table this year. So for 2021, for clients that are age 72 or older, you will need to take a required minimum distribution. So think about doing something maybe at the end of the year to donate that out of directly from your IRA so that it counts and that we don't get taxed on it. And I'm sure Chris has got a lot more information on that because this is his wheelhouse all the time. This is kind of the world that he lives in. So just a lot of good things that I tell clients, let's kind of expand our breadth of knowledge on it because it can make a huge difference. Resolution number 10, we're kind of getting to the end here. We want to check and make sure our retirement plan is on track. Again, it kind of, you'll see everything that we've kind of talked about, making sure that we are accountable. Again, being in control of what we can be in control of, and that's accountability to ourselves, making sure that we are doing the right things, okay? How do we make sure we keep our retirement plan on track? We kind of look at a couple things. I'm going to put all these on the screen at the same time. One, market volatility truly can affect retirement plans, okay? So we need, again, go back to that asset allocation, that risk tolerance that I talked about. As I said in the very beginning, I can't control what the markets are going to do day by day. I've got my hypotheses, my theories, My understanding is the markets where I think they're going to go year by year, but things are going to happen. There's not one portfolio manager that I know, and I talked to a lot of them, that came anywhere close to calling COVID-19 last year. We had the quickest market downturn in 18 trading days that history has ever shown. It was quick, it was brutal. Volatility is there. If we keep our asset allocation, our diversification, our risk tolerance in check, that's how we keep our retirement on check. I tell clients again, don't fixate solely on a number, and what do I mean by that? When we're looking to kind of say, a lot of clients, they'll tell me all the time, Reid, I need to get to that $1 million mark. Okay, that's that. They fix that on that number. I will tell you from experience, when we get to that number, it's never enough. They'll say, okay, Reid, well, I was comfortable. I thought $1 million would make me comfortable. Well, it doesn't, So, okay, we get to their next goal, 2 million. We get to the 2 million, right? Well, that's not enough either. I will tell you that in my career, there is never enough when it comes to it, because clients just don't feel comfortable because we fixate solely on that number. Again, what's more important is going back to those first couple resolutions and saying, making sure we've got enough income coming in over our expenses, okay? And also, we need to fluctuate on some of our distributions, meaning that if we have a plan and we're going to take a 4% distribution off of our retirement asset, that means the amount of money we take each year is going to need to fluctuate. If the portfolio does better, we take 4% off of a higher number. It means more money to you in retirement for that year. If the markets are down that year and our portfolio is down, that means we still take 4%, but we're taking it off a lower number, so the actual dollar amount we are taking home is a little bit less. Again, we need to adjust. And then realistically, we need to address the changes that we might need to make. And those are something that all the time, it's hard for clients to do. We kind of sometimes want to bury our head in the sand and pretend things aren't happening. Last year's prime example. Things were happening at an exponentially quick rate. And we need to make sure that we are addressing those changes as they happen so that our portfolio and our retirement plan isn't adversely affected by some of the things happening in a really quick environment. I will tell you that changes, the stock market, all of our investments are going to continue to increase in volatility at a rapid pace because of electronic trading, computer trading. When I first got into the business, it was nowhere near as volatile as it is today. Computers account for the bulk of trading. And when that happens, volatility happens to kick up. And again, means we're in just in a different market environment, and we need to be aware of that. We'll get on to resolution number 11. And this way we can save hopefully 15 minutes or so for questions. Make the indicated changes. And I can't stress this enough. When we go through any type of planning, we do a great job of planning, but if we don't implement these changes, we've kind of done it for no reason, right? I have a number of clients that will say, I'll back this up. They'll go and they'll get a trust done. Like, Reid, I got my trust done. Perfect. I said, congratulations. Then I ask them, did you fund your trust? And I get this stare, blank stare, like, I've got like an alien face on. What are you talking about, Reid? What I mean by that is that, okay, we need to make sure that now that we've made these changes, we've funded our trust, we've retitled our accounts, we've put everything into that trust, okay? If we're not into that trust level, right? But we've talked to an advisor and they said, here's what you need to do with your 401k plan, right? Here are the asset allocation changes we need to make. Make those changes. Don't wait. Go in and adjust your portfolio, okay? If we're looking at income and budgeting, right? And we know that, okay, expenses are getting a little bit out of control. Make those changes, implement those changes immediately. Don't wait. The next slide I have is hope is not a plan. Don't hope that eventually our income's just going to go up or that we're going to seal that new deal. Make sure that we are accountable, that we are changing things really quickly so that we can achieve our own financial success. Unfortunately, there is no one that's going to come, there's no knight in shining armor that's going to come behind you and say, great, here's everything that you're going to need and life is going to be wonderful. We are going to be responsible for our own actions. And that's where we really need to take control of this to make sure that we do that. So again, adjust your plan contributions. Here is one where all the time when people get a raise, I tell them this, right now, if our life is good and we get a raise, adjust the amount you put into your company retirement plan. Try to max that out. Put the raise 100% into your plan so you're contributing more to retirement. That's a great, great thing. Tax time. We're just getting through the end of tax time. May 17th, a little bit adjusted now, but historically it's April 15th. So when you get your taxes done, let's look at that. What does that look like? Are we paying a lot at the end of the year, right? Are we getting a lot back at the end of the year? We always should be adjusting our tax withholding so that we can really narrow it down so that we come to as close of a break even during tax time as possible, right? We don't want to owe a lot because that's a very painful thing, right? Sometimes we haven't saved enough. We don't have enough in our 6-month savings to pay for our tax bill. And then again, we've got to use some longer term solutions for our short-term tax problem. At the same time, let's say we get these huge, amount of money back, from our taxes. People are like, oh, wait, great. I won the lottery. Well, not really, because you're just getting your own money back. It would have been more effective to use your own money for a longer period of time throughout the year than letting the government have it at 0 interest. This, I stress a lot, maximize your employer plan. If the employer is making a match, put in at least up to that match. If the employer is going to match 5%, get at least 5% in it to get that match. Try all the time to put as much money toward your company retirement plans as possible. It's going to lower your income so that you're going to pay less taxes today. It's going to put money toward our retirement goals. It is one of the easiest and best things that we can do to help kind of make sure that our financial success is going to be there. Remember this too. Remember the effects of compounding. There is no making up. So for the young people on the call, start today, put it away. If we look over long periods of time, and you start to compound $100 a month, that's a lot better than starting, saying, at age 40 and doing the same thing. You can even double the contributions at 40, and it's going to take a long time to get up to starting 20 years earlier. So I tell young people all the time, start early. A lot of my clients, they'll bring their kids into me, and they're college kids or young adults, and I have a pretty brief meeting with them, and they get out of the meeting, and I get a call from the parent later, and they say, Reed, what did you say? Like, what are the magic words here? Because my kids are so excited to start investing. And I tell them all the time, I really didn't say anything magic. 2 things that are different though. One, it's the profession that I live in. 2, I'm not the parent. 3, I'm the guy in the suit. They always listen to the guy in the suit. So take the advice and let years of compounding really affect your plan. The last resolution, I skip over this really quickly, is if you are dealing with an advisor, make sure you're setting up regular reviews with the advisor. That is extremely important. We are really here to help. We love when clients get engaged. Okay, we want clients to really take their financial success, put it in their own hands. We want them to be interactive with us. So set up regular reviews, call and make sure that you're on their schedule and that we are reviewing and updating the plan. I tell clients all the time that I can't manage what I don't know. And through this whole presentation, you've heard me say life changes, and life changes sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. We need to know that so that we can adjust your plan and make sure that it's on track. Okay. Again, it's always better to over communicate than under communicate. I tell clients, you will never, ever, ever hear me say, you need to stop calling me because you're calling too much. I have clients that literally will call almost every week to get updates. Great. We will talk to them and communicate with them just because they want that type of information. So realize that communication is key. And if you're doing it on your own, I have some clients that do part of it on their own. Make sure that you're communicating with your partner, with your spouse, on what's going on, and kind of keeping them in the loop. That all goes into it. When I'm always communicating with spouses and partners, for me, it's very integral that both people understand what's happening. Because unfortunately, I've had the case where one passes away and the other one doesn't know. I've had a client for years and years and years, and this goes back a long time. The wife passed away, and we're going through all their assets, and he looks at me and he says, Reed, we have a bank account in Wisconsin. Why do we have a bank account in Wisconsin? And I said, well, here's why you had it. The wife disclosed everything to me. I knew exactly what every account was for, and I told him, here's why you have an account in Wisconsin, and he says, I had no idea. They were married for 50 years, she took care of all the stuff. So I learned over time that it's better that everybody be on the same page so that there's, kind of nothing hidden away, so that when the time comes and we need to take control of things, there we are. So I'm going to kind of stop and say, hey, your financial health depends on what you do and how you do it. Resolve to follow through on those things. And I'm going to kind of stop and open it up to questions that have come in there. So Chris, I'll let you kind of fire them away at me.
Okay, well, folks, if you have questions, go ahead and put those into the chat room and we will pose them to the guy in the suit. But have a couple that came in prior to Reed. First one, we know that there are two things in life that are sure, death and taxes. Neither of them are pleasant. So when we're preparing for retirement, it seems like the one thing we do forget is that our retirement savings dollars are still going to be taxed, especially in something like an IRA. And the media has been talking a lot about converting your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. What are your thoughts on that?
Chris, so great question. And one, you are right. The last 3 weeks, I've gotten more calls on this than I have in my whole career combined. And I asked a client that I know really well, I said, what's going on? He says, AARP put a huge article out on it. So one, let me kind of tell you what that is and what we mean by that. So you at any time in your life can convert pre-tax dollars in a traditional IRA to tax deferred or tax-free dollars in a Roth IRA, okay? Any amount that you convert into a Roth IRA becomes taxable income to you. So one strategy that we talk about is it beneficial to incur that tax today, okay, pay it, move it to a vehicle that we're going to get tax-free dollars in the future? And that question involves a lot. I tell clients it is something that we do with certain clients. So in order to make sure that it's beneficial, we have to have really two things in concert working together to understand what's happening. Your CPA or tax advisor and your financial advisor. We are able to run software numbers to say, here's what we're expecting, here's what the tax consequence is going to be today, and are we okay with that? I will tell you overall that depending on, if we want to try to maximize tax brackets, so let's say we want to fill up the 22% tax bracket or the 24% tax bracket before we get to the 32, right? It is a strategy that can be effective. What it does is it effectively lowers the amount that's in your traditional IRA so that when you are required to take distributions, there's less in there, less taxable income, possibility to give more away. So Chris, the answer is it really depends on what we're trying to achieve, and it depends on what amount of tax we're going to pay on it and the amount of time we're going to be able to let that asset grow in a Roth IRA to recoup the taxes we paid. So it is a good, effective strategy, but it is individualized to each person in each situation on there. But definitely something that we employ with our clients, depending on where they are in the income, age, a whole lot of different factors. Great question.
Linda has posed a question. She wants to know your opinions on what reasons should we establish a trust?
Excellent. And Linda, again, that's very variable. I deal with a lot of attorneys, and attorneys will give me a couple different answers. It used to be kind of the thought process that, okay, if you're starting to reach the $1 million mark, probably go into a trust. And here it really depends on how the assets are titled, and where the assets are. If we've got all of our assets in accounts that are beneficiary designated, meaning that all of our assets are in IRAs, right? Maybe very little need for a trust because there's nothing that's going to be done through that. If we've got a large amount of assets that are outside IRA accounts, probably a good idea to start looking at a trust, okay? Because what that's going to do is it's going to make sure that your assets are left to those who you want to. And if you have a kind of complex estate giving goals, meaning that, let's say you've got an estate that is, a sizable amount, and some's going to go to the kids. Maybe you want some to grandkids, so that you've got minors that are going to be getting money. You want some to go to charities. It is a lot easier to do that through a trust rather than just trying to parcel money out. So again, I tell clients that it is an individual situation. I personally am more of a trust-oriented person. The reason is most people are going to get a will, okay? And if you're going to get a will, it's going to cost money. I tell clients, pay the little bit extra to get a trust because it's going to make your life a lot easier.
Absolutely. Dawn Magretta, our executive director, actually sent in this question to you. She was in a meeting yesterday, and there was a lot of talk about investing in metals as inflation rises. And she'd like to know your thoughts about that.
So Dawn, one, I'm glad you added the last part on that, Chris. I tell clients that when we're looking at any type of investment, so let's look at any type of metals, we have to understand the premise in which they do well. Okay, so I laugh a little bit when I get these questions going. I remember investing for clients in gold a long time ago. Okay, I started to invest in clients for gold when it was around $250, so $250 an ounce. I rode that trade up to around 1,000 and I got out. Now precipitously gold continued to go up to around $1,500 an ounce, and clients called me and said, Reed, you sold it 1,000, it went to 1,500. I said, I bought it for you at 250. Like, come on, we 4 times your money in a matter of years. So the key when we look at metals, particularly, is that the key question is inflation really going to rear its ugly head? That's when we look at history, that's when metals do very, very well. Metals do well in high inflationary environments, okay? They also do well in times of crisis, okay? Meaning that, hey, if we are going through wartime or really uncertain times in the economy, you will see that metals trade very, very well, okay? So those two premises, if we believe we are going to be in environments where inflation is going to be higher than normal, okay, normal inflation runs around 2.5%. So if we believe we're going to be in an environment where inflation is going to run really hot, or we believe we are going to be in times of high uncertainty, metals can be a good part of your portfolio.
Another question, Reed, and I hate to bring this one up because everybody is so tired of discussing the pandemic. But the fact of the matter is it has had an effect on our lives, and we have to adjust to a new normal. It's had an effect on the workforce. If you, again, listen to the media and other sources, we're hearing that there are a number of excellent jobs, but employers can't find people to come in and take these jobs, or people are not necessarily coming right back to the position they held before. Thus far, it hasn't seemed to have a major impact on the market and conditions, but do you have a guess on whether or not it will eventually impact us?
Yeah, Chris, that's a great question. And that's one of the big issues that the economy is dealing with. Jay Powell, who is the chair of our Federal Reserve System right now, he was on yesterday and talked somewhat of the unemployment issue. And it is very hard because you're exactly right. There are jobs out there, okay? There are just a number of reasons why they're not getting filled. Some people are just really anxious of getting back into the workforce. They what has happened, and because of the virus, their world has been adversely affected. They have had death really near, and they just are scared to go out in the public eye again. So when we look at that, it is going to continue to be a little bit of drag on the economy, from a standpoint of we still have about 8.5 to 9 million jobs, that are lost because of this pandemic. Okay, that is a lot of people, right? And when those people aren't in the workforce, their income isn't there. right? And if their income isn't there, they can't spend it in the economy to continue to keep our economy going. So that is one thing where we are really, really watching from a standpoint of the economy, is saying the economy truly can't really get back rolling until we get employment back, right? It also goes into say, if we were watching Jay Powell, he said he's not going to be raising rates anytime soon. He believes inflation will run somewhat around that 2% rate. There's something called the Phillips curve, and that deals with unemployment and inflation. And basically it says, if we have really, really high unemployment, it's hard for inflation to really get out of control, because those people that are unemployed are having a really hard time making just their daily bills. So if inflation really starts to creep up in the system, they're not going to be able to afford anything, and we really have a disaster as far as an economy goes. So yes, our hope is, when I talk to economists, that we get these jobs, back hopefully by the end of this year. Okay, so that's at the earliest that I would say anybody is expecting the employment number to look, I'll say, somewhat healthy. Doesn't mean that we're going to get them all back, but it is going to be a drag on the economy until we get that there, for sure.
Well, Reed, we can't thank you enough for sharing your advice, your expertise, and your opinions on what we're facing as far as planning for various phases in our financial lives. If anyone didn't have a chance to post a question in the chat room, or you were too shy to do it, just let us know. You can send that over to me. Reed's contact information is on the screen. I think he would be happy to field any question that you might send to him at his own office. On the next front, our May program is going off into a different direction altogether. The program's entitled DEI, not just letters of the alphabet. And this is a topic too that is discussed quite a bit today and has a very important relevance to our lives today. We're going to have a panel discussion comprised of Kimberly Keaton-Williams, who is not only the Vice President of Talent Acquisition at McLaren Health Care Systems, but she's also now their Chief Diversity Officer. Dave Garcia, who is the Executive Director of Affirmations, the LGBTQ Community Center in Ferndale, is going to be joining us. And Sharon Christian, who is not only Schoolcraft College's Director of Learning Support Services, but she's on our own DEI committee, task force, and also oversees our DEI program, which is part of our STARS program. That's going to be moderated by Dawn Magretta, our Executive Director here at Schoolcraft College Foundation. So on behalf of Reed, again, our president at the college, Dr. Glenn Cerny, the faculty, staff, and all of my colleagues here at the Schoolcraft College Foundation, we want to thank you for joining us. We hope you'll be with us again. Watch social media to see what we have up our sleeves as far as other programs for you to enjoy. Reed, thanks again. Everyone have a wonderful day.